right, welcome in everyone. Welcome in. Today is the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Now I think we're getting pretty close to the end of this. I'm not sure how much more we have left. It could be this is the last episode, or we may have, 2 or 3 more. I don't know. It all depends on how much they're gonna drag out the final conclusion a bit. I say drag out, but it's always full of excitement, but you never know what kind of gotchas they're gonna bring up. Like, just when we think that we have the perpetrator like nailed down, then something else pops up and we're like, whoa, back to square one. So it's always all kinds of fun. So, and I hope you guys are ready. Let's go ahead and get an intro and let's hop in. So here we go. Greetings friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today we're playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and in today's episode we're going to see what kind of surprise Iris and Sholmes have in store for us. I don't know what they were preparing for us, but it's undoubtedly going to cause a lot of drama. So without further ado, let's hop into the game. Oh boy, here we go. Hope everyone's doing well today. Having a good Saturday afternoon. Alright, 4th of November, 9:30 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. We're back in court, guys. I hear all the whispering. The unicorn scepter. Before we begin today, I have a brief announcement. As with the closed trial 10 years ago, some astonishing facts have come to light in these proceedings. The revelation that the well-known Reaper is actually an organization illegally executing its own brand of justice, and the discovery that a respected yard inspector was at its heart until he himself perished in an assassination plot. Well, I say to all members of the judiciary here present on this occasion that we will stop at nothing to uncover the whole truth behind these disturbing findings. Counsels, you will undertake this trial with the resolve to pursue the truth to the bitter end. Resolve? Yes, that's my intention. Kazuma, are you guilty? Like, I don't know, he's keeping his own counsel. He's very suspicious. My lord, if I may inquire, the defendant may speak. On what grounds is Kazuma Ashogi permitted to continue in his role as prosecutor? That's what I'm kind of wondering. Is he admitted to possibly being... I mean, he was at the place where Gregson was last seen. It was literally his assignment to kill Gregson. I don't know. He has admitted to colluding with the victim in a plot to assassinate an innocent man. He shouldn't be enjoying the privilege of freedom, let alone be leading the prosecution. I submitted a written petition to Lord Strongheart, requesting the judgment of my transgressions be delayed by 1 day. You did what? In today's proceedings, I intend to expose everything. My whole life, for the last 10 years, has all been leading up to this 1 day. Oh boy, Kazuma? Whatever the outcome of this trial, I give my word that I will accept whatever punishment is deemed appropriate, however severe. And I suggest you prepare yourself for the same, Reaper. They just will not stop. Oh my goodness. Kazuma is bristling with hostility today. That is an understatement, man. I get the distinct impression we're heading into very dangerous territory. I 100% agree with that. Is that really even Kazuma-sama standing before us? I don't think so. I think he's just gotten some kind of madness gripped a hold of him now. As an extreme exception to normal practices, I have granted this prosecutor's request. The defense finds this acceptable, I presume. I mean, I don't know if are we going to have a choice? I guess we have to say yes, so yes, my lord. We're gonna see what happened. In that case, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session again. We resume the closed hearing of Beric van Zieks. The defense is ready, my lord. The prosecution is more than ready. Very well, then. This preamble has taken long enough. Prosecutor Shogi, begin. As you wish, my lord. The prosecution calls the first witness to the stand. Bring Shishiro Jikoku into the courtroom. At last, then, we've reached the final battle. Cue final battle, final boss music, guys. He's putting literally everything on the line now in order to get to the truth. Oh boy. Come on, Ryonosuke. It's time for that steely resolve. Because this is going to test it to the limit. 100%. Oh boy. Witness, state your name and occupation for the court. So, it was you who issued this, was it? Your subpoena. I did what was necessary. Well, look what the young man has become. I didn't think I'd see the day when you take that tone with me, I must say. The witness will ensure his responses are pertinent to the questions asked. He's just like, sure? My name is Shishiro Jikoku, a Supreme Court judge from the Empire of Japan. 16 years ago, this man came to London as a visiting student. 6 years later, he returned to Japan. As well as presiding over the Supreme Court, he is also currently Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yes, he is. I am, of course, aware of Mr. Jigoku and his roles. I invited him personally to the International Forensic Science Symposium as a representative of his country. I hear he also played a key role in the conclusion of the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation. It was a great honor to be involved in negotiations. I put my all into that treaty. Judge Jigoku, I must ask. Well, I never fancied the young murdering student turning up here of all places. You acquitted me yourself, and now I'm a practicing defense lawyer? Yes, and full of self-importance, like your friend across the courtroom, I see. You came here to London by invitation to the International Forensic Science Symposium. But then, without informing anyone of your plans, you took flight to France. Took flight? I'd have to object to that turn of phrase. What did he do then? Then explain yourself. What exactly were the circumstances? Well, I was somewhat expecting this, and I'm sorry to say, I decline to comment. What? What? That's what I'm wondering? Leaving the country prematurely when I was an invited guest may be questionable etiquette. But my decision is unrelated to this case. I can't be bound to testify. Unrelated, you say? Is it, though? Is it? I appreciate that a respected police inspector has been killed, for which I offer my condolences. However, being an alien, I'd obviously never met the man, nor do I know the first thing about him. Is that true, though? As such, I'm in no position to testify. It's as simple as that. So you would run from all this? I beg your pardon. This case is more far-reaching than the murder of Inspector Gregson. It has ties to another murder, a case that was tried in Japan almost a year ago now. The one that she herself was defending, right? A year ago in Japan. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson, you mean? Oh, okay. So not the one where Asa Shin was murdered. Okay. That's right. And you, Judge Jigoku, are at the heart of both cases. That's right. The defense has evidence to prove it. Oh boy. Well, Ryunosuke, I see from the look in your eyes that you're resolved to carry this through to the very end too. Indeed. Let's see your evidence then. What proof do you have that Shishiro Jigoku is involved in this case? We had something, let's see, it was this, right? Let's see. Record found as indicate duplicate follows K. Shogi A. Shin, T. Gregson, J. Wilson. This was found in his office, right? So it's got to be that, because that's the only thing that makes sense, right? So let's show the telegram. This is a telegram detailing a communication sent between Britain and Japan approximately 1 year ago. The communication contained 4 names: K. Shogi, A. Shin, T. Gregson, and J. Wilson. You little... Where did you get that? In Tokyo? From your office, Judge Jigoku? What? How on earth did you... What is this all about? Why is my name on that list? This list is 4 names. This list of 4 names follows a certain pattern. T. Gregson and J. Wilson are the names of victims. K. Shogi and A. Shin are the names of assassins. No. A year ago in Tokyo, Dr. John H. Wilson's life was taken in a Western-style restaurant in the capital. The culprit was found to be a visiting student who went by the name of Giselle Brett. But her real name was Asa Shin, a professional killer sent on a mission to kill from Great Britain. A. Shin and her victim, J. Wilson. And the murder that just took place here in London was the counterpart to that crime. An assassin sent from Japan, also a visiting student, Kazuma Shogi, whose victim was the British police inspector, Tobias Gregson. K. Shogi and T. Gregson. One assassin from each country to kill a target residing in the other. What exactly is the defense suggesting? These 2 cases of murder, one that took place in Britain and one in Japan, were masterminded by a pair of individuals from each country as a form of assassin exchange. Oh man, is he gonna be, is Lord Strongheart gonna be the one from the British Empire that masterminded it? Like, I'm just seeing that happen. And the telegram the defense has acquired is proof of this international contract to kill. What? Yeah, I mean, Kazuma's kind of playing innocent, but why? The telegram was found in your office, Judge Jigoku. In other words, the mastermind in Japan was you. He's all of a sudden angry. Judge Jigoku, what's this all about? And you, Kazuma, you lied. Yeah. During yesterday's proceedings, you acknowledged that you accepted the assassination mission. But the mark wasn't Judge Jigoku at all. It was T. Gregson, Detective Inspector of Scotland Yard, as shown by the name on the killing contract. Yep. Very impressive, Ryunosuke. But actually, I didn't lie. Really? The name of the target I was ordered to kill never passed my lips yesterday. The idea that Shishiro Jigoku was the mark came entirely from you. I mean, that's true. You deliberately avoided saying a name. The defense claims these 4 names indicate some sort of international assassin exchange. I'm sure I speak for all present when I say that the very idea seems utterly absurd. Well, Mr. Jigoku, what do you have to say for yourself? I'm curious. His silence only goes to prove his guilt. There's another very important point that this new development brings to light. There's now a distinct possibility that the scene of Inspector Gregson's actual murder was in the witness's cabin aboard the SS Grouse. And we have proof of that because we found the little watch cap to his pocket watch inside the trunk that Judge Jigoku was hiding in. Judge Jigoku, you have to testify now. To refuse would put you in contempt of court. He's thinking, there's no need for quite such a vicious stare, young man. Very well then, as a parting gift to you all, I'll tell you everything I know. Oh boy. It seems this Japanese gentleman has information that the court must hear about the alleged assassin exchange and the events of the night of the 31st October. Present your formal testimony now. Oh boy. As you wish, my lord. I'm so curious what this testimony is going to be. Witness testimony. The assassin exchange. It's true that Kazuma Oshogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was the condition of the British study tour. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times. Is it the one that you twisted around to your means? If there had been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved. Right, except for he was your accomplice. So he admitted then, as this communication suggests, there really was an assassin exchange arrangement between Britain and Japan. A political endeavor at the highest levels, not something I can discuss here. To use such a worthy practice as foreign study to coerce somebody to commit murder is the most appalling thing I've ever heard. Appalling? Well, it's easy to judge. Pardon? Shogi had a reason for taking his sword to that British inspector, you know. What? Which is why he accepted the mission in the first place. Isn't that right, Counsel? We're like pointing fingers now. Everyone's just like, it's reaching the end, so everybody's just gonna throw down and blame everyone else. Azuma-sama? Judge Jigoku, if you are the mastermind behind this operation in Japan, then tell the court the identity of your counterpart in Britain. I'm not obliged to divulge that information. And if it's Lord Strongheart, he's not gonna force it, right? As I said yesterday, I've killed nobody. I freely admit that I accepted the mission, but on the night the plan was to be executed, I backed out. In short, this assassin exchange that the defense has identified is unrelated to the events of this case. The crucial point is this. Your police inspector can't have perished aboard that steamship in Dunkirk, because if he'd been shot in the cabin, it's inconceivable that a member of the crew wouldn't have heard it. That's right. Gregson was killed after returning to London in the room on Fresno Street. And the perpetrator of the crime was the Reaper, Beric Van Zieks. Man, they're in it together. The prosecution's accusation remains unchanged. I'm sure it does when you're the murderer. Do you think that a seemingly innocent foreign exchange program was a facade for such Machiavellian dealings? Clearly, it's a plot only a government minister and high-ranking judge, such as the witness, could hope to execute. Well, I seem to recall that it was someone on the British side who controlled everything. Be that as it may, it is not the place of this court to pursue this villainous assassin exchange plot. We are concerned only with the tangible events pertaining to the murder of Inspector Gregson. Is the defense clear on that point, counsel? Yeah, because you're not sus at all. Yes, my lord, I'll keep that in mind as I cross-examine the witness. Oh boy. Oh, here we go. The assassination exchange. Let's see. It's true that Kazuma Ashogi was assigned the assassination mission 1 year ago now. Hold it! Alright, let's find out more. A year ago, when Kazuma was still in Japan then. Correct. It was at the examination center for applicants for the study tour that I approached him. I'll never forget it. I remember exactly what you said. You just came out and asked me forthright if I'd consider traveling to Britain on an assassination mission. Surely not. I thought it was a joke at first, of course, but then it was made clear to me that if I didn't accept, I wouldn't be considered for the study tour. So you agreed to it just for that? I mean, I know how much you wanted to study in England, but assassination? The Empire of Japan had accepted a proposal from the British Empire at the time. An agreement to send a student from each country to the others to deepen cultural understanding and friendship. But behind the scenes, the chosen students were to be given assassination missions. I had no choice but to accept the proposal that originated from my British counterpart. Why? Why didn't you expose the plot then and there? Yeah, why? I mean, you always have a choice. I don't understand. Britain acknowledges no part in these alleged misbegotten dealings. I advise you not to make spurious allegations. Foreign Minister Jigoku. Yeah, you're so suspicious. As a witness, I am bound to tell the truth, my lord. Anyway, I picked a shogi and explained the details of the plan to him. The target was Inspector T. Gregson. That was the condition of the British study tour. Hold it! Why Kazuma? Why did you pick him as the assassin? He was the most capable of all the applicants. In addition, I knew his desire to travel to Britain was very strong. In fact, it was almost more than a desire. It was his whole purpose in life. Yes, as his best friend, I can certainly attest to that. The way he threw himself into his studies, the way he pursued becoming qualified as a lawyer, it was all ultimately for that one single goal of being accepted on a study tour to Britain. And of course, we know the reason behind that. He was determined to find out for himself the truth about his father, Genshin Ashogi. There's nothing I wouldn't have done to get here. Be it that agreeing to the role of to assume the role of an assassin, or betraying people's trust. Well, you certainly did a fine job of betraying mine, Ashogi. Oh boy, this is like the game. This is like the day of burning bridges. But why was Inspector Gregson the target? I have no idea. Those were the orders from Britain. I was in no position to question them. You have no idea, really. I find it hard to believe. Oh, do you? Judge Jigoku was once a visiting student here in Britain himself, of course. Perhaps he has some connection with Inspector Gregson from that time. The defense really ought to catch up. With what? With the fact that the assassin exchange has absolutely nothing to do with the case under scrutiny here. Yeah, he keeps saying that. Yes, I've already admitted to recruiting a shogi. I mean, you keep saying that, but I'm not sure I believe it. However, in the end, something happened that meant the young man was unable to carry out his mission. Hold it! I presume you're referring to the incident that occurred during Kazuma's passage to Britain in January? Yes. The awful tragedy that took place on the steamship?
Word arrived at the ministry some 2 weeks after the ship's departure from our shores. The visiting student had been killed, but his body had somehow gone missing in Hong Kong. The news was wired me from a detective I placed on the ship to accompany the assassin.
Obviously, Kazuma didn't actually die at all, but he did lose his memory, including all details about his special mission. Did you not consider dispatching another assassin at that point?
That wasn't possible, simply because the black-clad young student over there had already put himself forward as Shogi's replacement, and there was no way to stop him from reaching Britain.
Ah, okay, so we thwarted that plan.
My hands were completely tied.
So Mr. Sholmes' strategy worked perfectly. He predicted everything that would happen.
Months later, my memory returned, but I'd never intended to go through with the assassination mission anyway. So you were playing me right from the outset, were you? Is that it? I'd sooner be guilty of that crime than of taking someone else's life. I was prepared to do whatever I had to in order to get myself here to Britain.
This line of questioning has gone on long enough. Oh boy. All the court should be concerned about in the testimony given by this witness are details relating to his relationship with Inspector Gregson and the victim's murder.
In that case, as I've already made perfectly clear, I had no connection to the man or his death.
And you have some means of substantiating this plea?
On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times.
Hold it! I think we met this member outside your cabin in the first class area of the SS Grouse, you mean?
Yes, that's right. Not least because there was a murder of a student passenger earlier in the year, I imagine. The liner operators have taken to posting a crewman outside every first-class cabin door. I can confirm the presence of the crewman guard myself.
What do you mean?
Because I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk that night. I witnessed it with my own eyes. There was a well-built crewman standing guard directly in front of the door to the witness's cabin.
Yeah, it was chicken stroganoff that was in his pocket. He had the code to unlock the trunk on his arm.
At that particular time, of course, I'd gone to the ship's dining room for dinner. The inspector and I asked the crewman to allow us to return to the cabin, or to allow us into the cabin while we waited for Judge Jigoku's return.
I suppose Inspector Gregson was there in his capacity as the Reaper? He was intending to take the witness's life.
Exactly. As I've said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing any... Whoops, I said it totally in the wrong voice. Exactly. As I've said numerous times now, I had no intention of killing anyone.
So the crewman let two potential assassins into the cabin he was supposed to be guarding. That sounds great. Not the most convincing of centuries, really. Exactly.
In truth, those were my thoughts too. But anyway, I stayed to talk with Inspector Gregson for a short while, and then I left him there and made my way off the ship alone.
Was the guard still at the door when you went?
Yes, he glared at me as I walked past. You see, that proves it.
How does that prove anything?
If there'd been a shot fired, the crewman would have heard it. So clearly, I can't be involved.
Hold it! Really? The crewman who was standing directly outside your cabin door, you mean?
That's right. A muscular man with a permanent grim expression on his face. He didn't once move from that spot. To be honest, I thought he was a miserable fellow. But as it happens, he's a vital witness now. There's no doubt that Gregson was killed by a gunshot, and it's inconceivable that a crewman just standing outside the cabin door wouldn't have heard that.
But wait, what about the ship's enormous steam engines? The noise of them could have drowned out the sound of the gun being fired.
Sadly, young judicial assistant, that won't wash.
Oh.
Wonder why? You will recall that my cabin was in the first class area of the ship, which is also, of course, the quietest. Don't imagine for a moment that it's anything like steerage, where the judicial assistants go, ouch! Rude!
I didn't mean.
But a hole like that, made by a bullet, was found in your cabin, Judge Jigoku. That's compelling evidence that a gun was fired in there. What's that? A bullet hole? Oh yes, you're talking about what the detective uncovered in the wall yesterday, I presume. That was obviously a rotten panel, eaten out by a woodworm. No doubt he didn't find an actual bullet. Ugh, that's the hole in this argument. Yep. Sadly, I was unable to arrange for the crewmen to be brought back to Britain with me. But obviously, if a gun had been fired in my cabin on the night in question, as the defense implies, I wouldn't have been arrested on the spot. I would never have made it to Britain in the first place.
Very true. The witness's logic is sound. Since no gunshot was heard from the witness's cabin on the night in question, we must assume that the witness is telling the truth.
I'm glad you've seen sense, my lord.
But they had that horn blocked off, right? So that there was less sound that could be heard. I know Kazuma's already admitted to taking on this incredible assassination plot, but even so, hearing it confirmed by somebody else is still a real shock. It's unforgivable. Using Kazuma-sama's feelings to manipulate him into agreeing to such a despicable plan. But I think Kazuma manipulated Judge Jigoku too. He completely double-crossed him. Oh dear, it's hard not to see that as a stroke of brilliance on Kazuma-sama's part. One way or another, though, Gregson ended up dead. I really think that the murder must have happened aboard the steamship. So you mean Judge Jigoku must be lying? I know I shouldn't let my emotions cloud my judgment. But you must destroy him, Mr. Naruto. Okay, so we have the little cap that was on Gregson's, it was, let's see, it was, right here, right? So we found this little cap. It's the little end piece that goes on to Gregson's pocket watch. It was found in Judge Jigoku's cabin on the SS Grouse. So I think what we need to do is we need to present that possibly as evidence to where he's like, I had no part in this. So let's get there. It's not that one. The target was Inspector Gregson. Something happened on the evening of the question. Okay. If there'd been a shot fired. So, okay.
If there had been a shot fired, the crewmen would have heard it, so clearly I can't be involved.
I think you can be involved. Can you explain this?
Objection!
Does that work? I don't think it works. Okay, so the last statement seemed a little questionable to me. What do you think, my lord? He's going to be like, no?
Well, I see no inconsistency there.
Do you? I mean...
You could span the Straits of Dover with those wide eyes, Council, and be gone from this island forever, I hope.
Oh boy. Okay, so it wasn't that. Hey, Toad, welcome in. Do you want me to fill the English channel with tears? Alright, so we gotta try again. Alright, so let's look and see what evidence that we do have. So, clearly, the small component is not the evidence we need. Let's go backwards. So we know we have the telegram from Japan, which that's not going to help us here. That didn't help us. What is this? This is the evacuation drill itinerary. A notice about a practice evacuation to be carried out by the crew of the SS Grouse the night before the ship arrived in Dover. Following departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble on the main deck at 10 p.m. in order to review evacuation procedures. The drill will take 20 minutes. Crew to resume duties as soon as the drill is over. So that's going to include the guy that was sitting right outside his door, right? All right. Let's hydrate. How's it going? So, I think the statement that we need to do is actually the one before it, right? So let's skip forward to that. The part where he said there was a crewman out the whole time and he never moved. I think that's what he said, but it was the one just before this statement. Like statement 4. All right.
On the evening in question, a member of the crew was on duty outside my cabin at all times.
But was he really, though? Because you had the evacuation drill itinerary, right? So let's try that. There we go. Yes, as the court has heard, there was a crewman posted outside Judge Jigoku's cabin. However, we can't be sure that, contrary to the witness's claim, the guard wasn't there at all times.
What?
I have here a notice of a particular event that was scheduled to take place aboard the steamship on the 31st.
What? Where did you get that?
It's evidence gathered by Mr. Herlock Sholmes. You were acquainted yesterday, if you remember.
Herlock Sholmes again.
Yep, he's going to be your undoing. According to this itinerary, after leaving the port of Dunkirk at exactly 10 p.m. and for a period of 20 minutes, all crewmen of the SS Grouse were to gather on deck for an evacuation drill.
All crewmen were away from their posts.
And during that 20-minute interval, of course, any gunshots emanating from your cabin would have been heard by no one. He's been foiled. In summary, Judge Jigoku, you had ample opportunity to commit the crime. Okay, so it was him that killed Gregson. So he was, we had Kazuma was assigned to commit it, but he's acting this way because he literally wasn't there.
A 20-minute window of opportunity. That's an excellent find, Ryonosuke. But it amounts to nothing.
Why?
Because the witness clearly stated in his testimony that no incident occurred in his cabin.
Yeah, but if he was a murderer, that's of course what he would say.
Unless you have some decisive evidence that can show his testimony to be false.
This is where we present the watch piece.
Your accusation amounts to nothing more than conjecture.
Very true. Well, counsel, we've got it. So here we go. Inspector Gregson was killed in Judge Shigoku's cabin that night. I'm certain of it. Because the defense has evidence to prove it.
You will present the evidence for the defense at once, counsel.
What proof do you have that the victim's life was taken in Judge Shigoku's cabin on the 31st of October? This is where we present the watch piece. Judge Jigoku, this was found in your cabin yesterday. What is that? The crown of a pocket watch?
A pocket watch?
And if you will observe, the victim's pocket watch, which we know he treasured, is missing precisely that part.
It can't be.
Moreover, this crown is a perfect fit on the spindle protruding from the victim's watch. Now, the fact that this was retrieved from Judge Jigoku's cabin tells us that the victim's watch almost certainly broke there. In other words, the victim was killed on the 31st during the 20-minute evacuation drill in the cabin occupied by you, Judge Jigoku. All right.
Well, you're razor sharp, aren't you? You young murderer.
We're not the murderer, my guy. You are.
Expertly maneuvered, Ryunosuke. And your argument sounds entirely plausible, but at first. But rather like this pocket watch. It's full of cracks.
What now? What?
And I believe Judge Jigoku feels the same way. I was wrong to acquit you earlier in the year.
Sorry?
If I'd known that it would result in anyone having to listen to this drivel, I would have declared you guilty, just to spare the world your ridiculous bombast.
What is he talking about?
I think it's clear that the witness will have to give further testimony. When you hear what actually happened in my cabin that night, you'll notice the pitfall in which you've stumbled.
Okay, maybe if you hadn't lied in the first place?
Prior to your renewed testimony, I would like to clarify one point. The fact that this part of the victim's watch was discovered in your cabin means that you acknowledge he was there, I presume? Yes, I do. Very well, then. You may proceed to give your formal testimony about what exactly happened in your cabin aboard the ship on the evening of the 31st of October.
So, if it's so innocent, why didn't you just tell the truth the first time?
Of course. As a man of law, I have no intention of obstructing justice.
What you just did, my guy? Are you listening to yourself? Like, seriously? The events in the cabin?
I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room.
He's gonna say Gregson shot him, isn't he? That's what he's gonna say.
When I walked through the door, a mustached Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me. I soon took care of him with an ippon seithro, though he couldn't run away after that. I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder. The inspector was clearly killed, having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London.
Yeah, because somebody can't plant a body. I mean, that never happens.
Ippon seo, I don't know how to pronounce that, a common jiu-jitsu martial arts technique in my country. I was careful not to use too much force, but the man obviously landed too heavily for his watch to take. To Ryunosuke Naruhodo, I imagine you can see the flaw in your logic now, can't you?
What?
The fact that the pocket watch was broken in the witness's cabin in no way proves that the victim's murder took place there.
Except for that it was in the trunk. It was in the trunk.
I have no doubt the inspector intended to kill me, but he didn't manage to pull the trigger. Yes, because he was merely the tactician, not the reaper's hand of death. Well, the testimony appears to make perfect sense as far as I can tell. Let me express my deep gratitude for your understanding, my lord.
But if the testimony holds, Judge Jigoku will be deemed to have no involvement in the case.
Well, counsel, I really see no reason for wasting precious court time here on a cross-examination.
Yeah, we're gonna cross-examine him. Sorry, my lord, the defense has a right to cross-examine, and I don't intend to squander that.
You're an embarrassment to your countrymen, not knowing when you're beaten.
Yeah, we're not the embarrassment there.
In that case, proceed, Mr. Naruhodo.
Okay, so here we go. Let's see if we can punch some holes in this theory.
I had a guest waiting for me when I returned to my cabin after finishing my evening meal in the dining room.
Hold it!
But how did he get past the guard? That's what I want to know. Because the so-called guard posted at your cabin door had just let your killer pass, you mean?
Apparently, Gregson told the crewman he was a police inspector, which was the truth, of course.
He wouldn't have had his identification with him, though. Exactly.
He had his trench coat and mustache, not to mention the bag of chips. I imagine the crewman was convinced.
Yeah, because that's totally convincing. But the man accompanying him would have had 2 swords slung around his waist.
You mean me?
Who else?
Yes, that's true. You would have hoped the sight of a few swords might have set off alarm bells in the guard's head. The point is, I left the cabin before its occupant returned, and I immediately disembarked the ship. Certainly, all I can tell you is that only the inspector was waiting for me when I arrived back at my cabin.
And you entered without any inkling of suspicion?
That's right, none whatsoever.
It just doesn't seem right.
When I walked through the door, a mustached Englishman was there, foolishly waving a gun at me.
Hold it!
What gun? Obviously, you're talking about Inspector Gregson.
Yes, though at the time I didn't know the man's name, and there was no time for introductions. I value my life over manners.
By which you mean that the inspector was there to assassinate you, I suppose.
That was certainly in the impression given by the gun pointing in my direction. But I've never seen the muzzle of a revolver shake about so much in all my life. Anyone would think that the man had never shot somebody before.
Believe it or not. Believe it or not, most of us haven't.
Anyway, there was no time to call for the help of the crewman at the door, so I dealt with the man myself. I soon took care of him within Ippensay throw, though. He couldn't wait to run away after that.
Hold it!
Even though the man had a gun, that was a very brave move, wasn't it?
My Ippensay is far faster than a bullet, I can assure you.
But surely all that commotion caused the crewman to come in, didn't it?
Yes, of course. He burst in immediately without knocking. The inspector hurled himself at the stocky fellow and just managed to slip past him to make his escape.
The outstanding guard does it again.
Luckily, there aren't many situations I can't get out of using a quick Ippensay throw.
Really? Are you going to use that on us?
I imagine his watch was broken when I threw him over my shoulder. It has nothing to do with his murder.
Hold it!
The crown snapped off and the glass covering the face of the watch was cracked.
Preferably the man's head was being pulled off, or his spine cracking, wouldn't you say? Not that the man was spared for long. A bullet to the chest soon saw to that. But the point is, the broken pocket watch doesn't prove that a murder took place. Absolutely not. All the watch proves is that the power of my jujutsu throw.
Whatever you say, it doesn't quite ring true that no shot was fired in that cabin. Because there was an obvious bullet hole in the wall.
What are you talking about?
Huh?
That's what the star of your lowbrow detective stories told you, is it? Well, I don't care for such fiction. Haven't you worked it out yet, you little stripling? Or stripling. No murder took place in my cabin.
Then why was it so suspicious, and why did you lock yourself in the trunk?
The inspector was clearly killed, having returned to Britain, because his body was found in London.
Hold it!
But there's no evidence that proves the victim ever returned to London alive.
Just take a moment to think that idea of yours through now, stripling.
What?
If the inspector was killed on the steamship in France, how on earth could he have got back to Britain? When people die, their bodies remain at the same spot. It's a devil of a thing.
Yeah, unless you move him, you idiot! Well, then obviously the culprit must have moved the body.
How exactly? Carrying a corpse off a ship in your arms would raise a few eyebrows at least, don't you think?
In your trunk, you idiot. I mean, seriously. Well, yes, that's true, but
All passenger luggage is inspected when it is unloaded from arriving vessels, and I would like to think that the border police would query the corpse of an English gentleman as hand luggage.
okay, so that actually presents a bit of a conundrum. So how could he have gotten off? That is the question.
If the murder had taken place aboard the ship, you would imagine the body would have been disposed of at sea. There would be no sense in risking being caught by attempting to transport the body back to Britain.
Ugh, that's killed that idea then.
But perhaps not.
Mrs. Otto?
We've heard that the first-class passengers were under constant scrutiny by the crewmen posted to guard them, which would mean that the culprit had no opportunity to dispose of the body in the sea.
I mean, that's true. Yes, that's true. So transporting the body to Britain may have been the only viable alternative.
Dear me, you really are new to this, aren't you?
You don't have to insult us.
I thought it had been perfectly clear, but it seems I'm going to have to explain it in words you can understand. I think I ought to alter my testimony, with your consent, of course, my lord.
I have no objection. State your amended testimony now.
There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Do we have his trunk? This is Gregson's metal traveling trunk, but that's not going to be big enough for his body. How could he have? We don't have any evidence that he could have transported it. Okay, so we're going to have to press that, I think. Let's press.
Hold it!
There's an idea.
Think about it, stripling. All passengers and crew disembarked at the same time and passed through the same checks at the border. The symposium guests were then driven straight to the hotel in carriages organized by the ministry.
And we met you as soon as you arrived at the hotel.
So you did. Well then, remind me, did I have a corpse over my shoulder at the time?
What? No.
So we're in agreement then. I couldn't possibly have brought the inspector's body back to Britain.
We didn't say that.
Unless, of course, they developed some clever device these days to move things instantly from A to B.
I mean, that was the entire idea of the last case, but no. Funny you should say that.
Professor Hairpin's invention didn't actually work, if you remember, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, of course.
The defense has become unusually quiet, I notice.
Yes, because there's really nothing more to say.
I mean, sadly, there kind of isn't, so I don't know what to say. So that's his story.
Well, I suppose if you think about it, whenever you drop a teacup in the office and it breaks, we don't say Mr. Naruhodo must have been murdered in there, do we?
Is that a veiled threat about what might happen to me if I break another one?
And the fact is that Inspector Gregson's body was found in the little room on Fresno Street. If he really was killed in Judge Jigoku's cabin,
the body would have to have been moved somehow, obviously. Transporting a dead body over a country border, that would be impossible for the majority of people. So there must have been some special circumstances that made it possible for the culprit then.
That could be a vital realization, I think, Mr. Naruhodo.
Do we have something that says he was like, you know, an ambassador sort of deal? Let's see. Let's look at what evidence we have. Let's look. Autopsy, passport, the Ashogi papers. What do we have? Inspector's identification. Autopsy, Gregson's photo. Do we even have anything? don't know what we could possibly have. That's the little key, right? Let's see. I don't know. Do we even have anything that could be used? I'm really not sure. I'm trying to think. Like, I feel like we had something, right? What do we have? Is there... Okay, let's look carefully. Let's look at each piece. Let's go backwards and look at each piece. So this is, we can't flip that. So that's just what we've already looked at. We've already looked at this. There's nothing new here. Let's see. This one is another one. Is just what you see is what you get. We've already examined this, right? I suppose we could look at it again. Kuruma the Great Blade. It's such a thing of beauty. I want to gaze on it for hours. And then we see that the tip is missing, right? The tip of the great sword, broken. It's such a shame. It's been so meticulously cared for over the years. I can almost hear Kuruma sobs. Kazuma must have really taken a swing for that to happen. Yeah, so that's what... There's nothing else there, right? Nothing we can examine. Okay, so nothing there. Is there anything with this? This is nothing we can seem to examine. Oh, wait, right there. The ears, I guess.
What a charming little rabbity version of Mr. Sholmes. Do you suppose this is how Iris sees him?
I mean, I hope not.
Are you alright, Mr. Naruhodo? Your eyes are veritably boring into the poor doll's ears.
Oh, sorry. I was just wondering, what do you suppose would happen if I were to tug its ears with all my might right now? Okay, so that...
I'm sure we'll find out when the time is right. To become a proper gentleman, you really must learn stoic patience.
But I want to know. So we already know what will happen there. Okay, autopsy report. How could that possibly be relevant? 31st of May. This is just his autopsy report. There's nothing else there other than that John H. Wilson signed it. Or at least it's his signature. We got Gregson's passport. Nothing useful. Alright, what about his trunk? Like, I think this is too small. This is... It's gotta be much too small, right? Let's open it and look inside, because it had just, like, papers in it, right? Let's have a look inside. There's no way his body could fit inside here. Yeah, that's way too small. Way too small. I mean, there is blood here. There's no false bottom or anything, but this is just, like... That's just not possible, and we've already looked at that. Okay, what about the Ashogi papers? Be delivered to Kazuma Ashogi. It's with deep sadness that I accept my fate. I regret nothing about my chosen path. Okay. Commemorative photograph. This was taken in the hotel, right? Is there anything about this? Because we mentioned meeting him in the hotel, right? I mean, he does... Wait. He's got his trunk with him. Oh. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to go to the statement where he said there's no way he could have smuggled it aboard, right? I don't know how he got past the examination of the suitcase, but clearly he did. So let's get there. Alright. It's gotta be this one.
There's no possible way I could have transported the victim's corpse back to Britain.
Except for you had your giant trunk with you, which is where we found the watch part.
Objection!
There's no possible way you could have moved Inspector Gregson's body, you say. I would say the opposite is true.
And what's that supposed to mean?
Far from being impossible for you to do, the transporting of Inspector Gregson's body back to Britain is something only you could do. Because he was like an ambassador or something, right?
What are you talking about, Ryonosuke?
As well as being a judge, Mr. Jigoku is also Japan's Minister of Foreign Affairs, which means he probably had a special exception from having his bag searched, right? Which means he's exempt from having his luggage searched when he enters the country. Exactly. We learned that when we first met you upon your arrival in London.
Well, all those passport checks and luggage searches at the border took rather a lot of time. I must say, I'm very envious of your ministerial status. You didn't have to go through any of that, did you?
Ah, I knew you were jealous. Ha 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 ha.
Oh boy. I presume you recall this, Judge Jigoku. This was what we took, yes, it's a photograph we took in the foyer of the hotel to mark the occasion. As the court will note, you have with you your large travel trunk. Large enough, in fact, to have a corpse inside.
Mr. Naruhodo, surely you're not suggesting?
I'm afraid I am, yes. 3 days ago, when we were chatting innocently with the new arrivals from Japan in the hotel, the body of Inspector Gregson was just meters away from us, inside Judge Jigoku's trunk. Oh, man. Oh, man. Order, order, order in the court. I'm skeptical, counsel, that a grown man's body could fit inside even the largest travel trunk, except for that's the trunk we found him in. It could, because I happen to know that the witness himself, a man of considerable size, fits inside the trunk. And verifying that would be extremely simple, wouldn't it, Judge Jigoku?
But inside his trunk, how horrifying.
And after we'd spoken with you at the Great Waterloo Hotel, you had the opportunity to visit the apparent scene on Fresno Street, taking your trunk with you in a cab to deposit the inspector's body.
I don't have to listen to this nonsense.
Dr. Gori, the coroner who examined the body, has confirmed the possibility. She's acknowledged there are signs that steps may have been taken to disguise the true time of death. The onset of the body's decomposition could have been delayed by storing it in a refrigerator.
Counsel, as I remember explaining yesterday, refrigerators of requisite size are few and far between.
Yes, I'm sure they are, but one place they're certainly found is on a large ocean liners. Such ships are equipped with electrically refrigerated cold rooms to keep food fresh on their long sea voyages, and the SS Grouse is no exception. Professor Mikitoba told me about it only yesterday. Well, Judge Jigoku? However much you prolong this debate, you can't eliminate the truth. All the evidence points to you being the killer. He has the look of the killer too.
Well, this is all very heartening.
What?
I can see it was a wise move, letting Ashogi and you embark on this study tour.
What are you talking about now?
Logical reasoning, of course. All court proceedings will be built on logical reasoning in the new century. And I can see that you've both laid firm foundations for that already.
Judge Jigoku, please, stop diverting attention from the issue at hand. The defense has made an accusation against you. How do you respond?
Respond? There's really no need for me to respond, is there?
Why ever not?
Because before you can even begin to answer the question of when the victim was killed, you must first establish one key fact. Where was the victim killed? It's quite logical.
The actual scene of the crime.
The prosecution stance is unaltered. The killing took place on Fresno Street when the gunshot was heard. As the accused, Beric Van Zieks shot the victim at point-blank range. Since no tangible evidence exists to disprove the prosecution's claim at this time, the defense's deductions amount to little more than an elaborate fairy tale. I'm afraid that's how the logical reasoning the British are known for really works, young stripling.
You know, it would be a really great time for whatever Sholmes prepared to just appear now. The victim was shot in that little room on Fresno Street and died instantly. I'm afraid it's the prosecution's claim that's the only fairy tale here.
How can you say that?
There's like no blood at the scene, right? Quite simply, because the claim directly contradicts a certain piece of evidence in our possession.
Very tantalizing, counsel. I think you had better explain yourself to the court, don't you?
The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. It's the watch, though, right? Let me look at the picture. There is some blood there, so I guess you couldn't really say that. Is it just the watch again? Why didn't he wind it? Right? I'm gonna try it.
Take that!
The Japanese really are a curious breed. To proffer an argument with such conviction, only to present nonsensical evidence. Perhaps my Japanese friend's inexplicable thinking is why people talk of the mystique of the East.
In case you hadn't noticed, I'm not the only Japanese around here. Do you even have a mirror?
The court is not interested in the mystique of anything. You will be penalized accordingly.
Okay. Was the victim killed in the room on Fresno Street, or was he moved there after his death? Maybe it is the photograph. There's one piece of evidence we have that shows the answer to that question surprisingly clearly.
Perhaps you should try to present the correct one this time, Mr. Naruhodo.
I mean, yeah, that would be nice.
Are you going to try again? Or can't you hold your hand steady enough to point it out?
The prosecution claims that Inspector Gregson died instantly when he was shot at the scene on Fresno Street. But this evidence clearly contradicts that claim. Alright, so let's take a peek at the photograph. I mean, there's not a whole lot of blood here. If he died instantly, wouldn't he be like... He's also like curled up in the fetal position, right? Like, if he died instantly after being shot at point blank range, wouldn't he be like on his back or something? I don't know. I feel like this is just weird. This is a weird photograph. Plus, we've never used it anywhere as far as I know. So let's present this. Let's just see. We got 3 tries. Let's
Take
see.
that!
Photograph of the victim in the very location you claim he wasn't killed.
Yes, but the point is the posture of the body itself. Yeah, because he's like, if he was killed at point blank range, he should have like gotten thrown back or something. He wouldn't be curled up in the fetal position. If Inspector Gregson had been shot there in that room, it's out of the question that his body would have been curled up in a ball like that. Exactly.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but your logic is flawed. He could easily have adopted that fetal position due to the pain of the shot, which subsequently proved fatal.
But you said instantly killed, dude.
Objection!
I'm sorry to disappoint you, Judge Shikoku, but it's your logic that's flawed.
What?
According to this autopsy report, the victim died instantly. He would have felt no pain, much less have been able to draw himself into that position. Which begs the question of why the victim's body is curled up that way. Unless he was shoved in a trunk. The answer should be abundantly clear by now.
You're suggesting...
The inspector's body took on that posture ahead of its arrival on Fresno Street, before it was coldly turned out onto the floor, inside of a large travel trunk.
No.
You're quite right. The shape of the body. It looks exactly as if it had been kept in a confined space.
Oh boy. Judge Jigoku, present your trunk for examination. I believe it's very possible that it will contain traces of the victim's blood.
Ugh.
And what's gonna happen now?
Present my trunk. I refuse.
What? On what grounds? Yeah, on what grounds, my guy?
I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs from the Empire of Japan.
But that doesn't give you free reign to murder people, my guy.
I shouldn't have to put up with this treatment just because of some stripling's baseless accusations.
In other words, Judge Jigoku, there is blood in your trunk.
I decline to answer that. As the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have privileges that allow me to.
At this moment, you're not a government minister. You are a witness in a trial in Britain's highest court. I don't care who you are or what your status outside this courtroom might be, you will not withhold information. Nothing is more important than the truth. Oh man. It's gonna be great. Order in the court. Well, Mr. Jigoku wants it to be.
You can't be serious. You did it.
Oh boy.
Have you no shame at all, Kazuma Ashogi?
What? What's going on here?
Very well, I admit it. I did bring the inspector's body into the country. Inside my trunk, exactly as postulated by the defense.
He's gonna throw Kazuma under the bus now, isn't he? What?
Outrageous!
So it was you. You admit to Inspector Gregson's murder.
No, I admit to nothing more than what I've said. Of killing the men, I certainly have no recollection.
What on earth is that cryptic statement supposed to mean?
I merely disposed of the inspector's body, which was left in my cabin, in order to avoid unwanted attention. As the judicial assistant over there pointed out, I had no chance to throw it into the ocean. So, I decided my only option was to bring it into Britain with me and dispose of it somewhere else.
Because, you know, reporting it to the authorities was completely an absurd idea. For an innocent person, that would have been ridiculous, right? You can't still deny it. If you didn't do it, then who on earth did kill the man? Cue blaming Kazuma.
As you know, there was one other person in my cabin that night. He had the opportunity. And moreover, he'd already accepted a mission to take the inspector's life.
Oh,
That's right. Who else could it have been? It was you, Kazuma Ashogi.
Oh man.
You.
Oh man.
I never thought you'd stoop to this, Shishiro Jigoku. You've taken the words straight out of my mouth. Prosecutor Kazuma Ashogi. You thought by leaving the body in my cabin, you could pin the crime on me, did you?
Well, the prosecution counsel has already admitted to visiting the witness's cabin on the night in question.
Yes, on an assassination mission, no less.
You wouldn't.
So, what do you make of that, young stripling? You've heard my testimony now, and that's all I have to say on the matter. I'll admit to nothing more.
I don't believe this.
Counsel for the defense.
What is your position now? The court awaits your response to the victim's assertion. The assertion that on the night in question, the victim's assailant was in fact Mr. Kazuma Shogi. This isn't the dead end it seems to be. The answer's right in front of me. It comes down to Jigoku or Kazuma. Both of them had the opportunity to kill Gregson, but only one of them did it. And I'm just a step away from proving who. Very well. Defense is ready to respond to the assertion put forward by Judge Jigoku. Okay? The idea that the victim's murder could have been committed by Prosecutor Ashogi is what? Could it have happened? I'm not sure. What do we have? I mean, how could he have... No. No. It's got to be impossible. No. Well, let's think about this. He had his sword. He hit the metal box. We know that. Why did he hit the metal box? We don't know. Could it have been possible? I'm not sure. What could it have been? I just don't think... I don't know. I don't think that he could have done it. Because so he has been consistent. I mean, he has an agenda to be sure, but he's been rather consistent on his answers, right? Yes, he's hidden stuff, but he hasn't outright lied. Whereas the judge has lied and lied again and lied again. I'm going to say 3 strikes, you're out. I'm going to say it's impossible for Kazuma. Judge Jigoku, let me remind you of something you said only a few minutes ago. You claimed that logical reasoning is the future of the judicial process.
It is, no question.
Well, logical reasoning can prove something here. Namely, that it would have been impossible for Prosecutor Ashogi to commit the crime.
What?
Okay. The court will only accept an argument that is supported by compelling evidence. So present what you have, counsel. What proof is there that allegedly demonstrates the impossibility of Prosecutor Ashogi's involvement? Okay, so let's look at our evidence. Okay, so we have the telegram from Japan. That is suspicious. This was found in his trunk. What was this? Following the departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required... He wasn't on the ship when it departed. Following the departure from the port of Dunkirk. He wasn't on the ship. There was no opportunity for him to get the trunk into the refrigeration unit. That had to have been after the ship had set sail, right? Are we wrong about this? Let's try it.
Take that!
This itinerary for crew members of the SS Grouse, my lord. This is conclusive proof. An itinerary? How does that prove anything? Judge Jigoku, the moment you acknowledged that you found the victim's body in your cabin, this itinerary suddenly became much more significant.
What? Why?
On the night in question, as always, a crewman's sentry was on guard outside your cabin door. As long as he was there, nobody could have fired a shot inside the cabin. That's right. So he had to have been killed after the ship had set sail and Kazuma wasn't on the ship.
Absolutely, because it's inconceivable that the guard wouldn't have heard it and come to investigate.
So that tells us that the crime must have taken place when the guard was elsewhere.
and that narrows it down to 20 minutes just after 10 o'clock, as indicated on the itinerary.
Yes, I see no flaw in your reasoning so far.
But the crucial point is this. When the evacuation drill took place, the steamship had already put to sea from the port of Dunkirk. That's what I was saying, right? And Kazuma wasn't on the ship, right? Now, clearly, the murder could only have been committed by somebody who was aboard the vessel at the time. But Prosecutor Ashogi stated in yesterday's proceedings,
I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life, so I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent the night at a boarding house in town and returned to England the following morning.
which I'm sure the court will agree is conclusive proof, assuming it could be, validated, that Kazuma Hishogi couldn't possibly have carried out the killing. Yeah, exactly. That makes me feel a little better about Kazuma, though.
No, absolutely not. I don't accept that at all.
What do you mean?
The boy's just saying that to exonerate himself. We can't trust that he really disembarked the vessel. Obviously, after he left my cabin, he hid himself somewhere nearby on the ship. Just waiting for his chance to come back and finish the...
No, that's out of the question. Isn't it, Kazuma?
As the defense rightly recalls, I disembarked the vessel and spent the night in a boarding house in Dunkirk. And as I said yesterday, I signed my name in the accommodations register book. All extremely easy to verify and undeniable proof.
There's no escape this time. You can forget that you're a judge or a government minister. It's time you gave the court an honest answer as a common man. You killed Inspector Tobias Gregson and transported his corpse back to Britain. Then you dumped the body in the room on Fresno Street and made it look as if the murder happened there. That's what really happened, isn't it, Sheshiro Jigoku?
It was at trial 10 years ago. That's when all this began.
Oh boy.
Looking back now, my fate was decided that day. I was doomed already.
Were you the professor? He broke it again. What in the world?
It's over. My life is over.
What in the world? Man. What? A British assassin to eliminate a professor in Japan. A Japanese assassin to eliminate a detective in Britain. Both assassins will use diplomatic immunity to evade conviction and return safely to their homelands.
The assassin exchange required arrival from Britain about 1 year ago. Though it was hardly a request, it was a demand.
And for that, you decided to recruit Mr. Oshogi? But things didn't go according to plan. Your chosen assassin never made it to Britain. And you found yourself unable to dispatch a replacement because I was already on my way to Britain at the time in Kazuma's place. Okay?
And that left me with only one option for carrying out my obligation. To eliminate the mark myself, personally. Of course, there was but a single opportunity for me to do that.
The International Forensic Science Symposium, I presume.
That's right. I decided it would be safest to carry out the plan before my arrival in Britain, so I enlisted the help of my British counterpart and made arrangements for a pretext that would take the inspector to Dunkirk. To lure the man in, he was given a sham mission by the Reaper.
What? The Reaper?
But there's only one person who could have done that. the mastermind of the entire operation, the Reaper himself.
So, that means that the assassin exchange was... It was all planned by the Reaper.
I'm not at liberty to say anything about my British counterpart. Anyway, the inspector accepted the Reaper's mission and dutifully infiltrated my cabin on the steamship. But it was all a trap designed to lead him to France and his own death.
Oh, how awful.
It was past 9 o'clock when I returned to my cabin from the dining hall that evening. I didn't give him time to attack me. I choked him until he lost unconsciousness. But there was a guard just outside the door, so I left it at that for the time being. Even the slightest noise might have aroused suspicion, so I bided my time, waiting.
For the 20 minutes after 10 o'clock?
I had intended to finish him by strangulation, but moments before I had the chance, he suddenly came round and went for me in a reckless move.
Oh boy.
I had received the British issue gun 16 years earlier, being a member of the judiciary as a visiting student. I never imagined I'd have to use it for something like that.
So the revolver belongs to you, does it? Then the victim was killed inside your cabin on the SS Grouse, which begs the question of why you arranged for his body to be discovered in the room on Fresno Street.
The young judicial assistant over there has already answered that question. There was no way I could take the body up on deck to throw it over the side.
Okay.
That's precisely where all the crewmen were gathered for the evacuation drill. So, before the first-class cabin sentries returned, I took the corpse to the refrigeration room.
And then on arriving in Dover, you concealed the body in your trunk in order to smuggle it past the border police.
I knew I needed to take steps if the police were to be convinced when the body was found in London. In that case, you must have known. You must have had intimate details of Inspector Gregson's intended schedule. Yes, my British counterpart sent me everything I needed to know. The inspector was due at Fresno Street at 5 o'clock that afternoon, in order to meet a man by the name of Hugh Boone, from whom he would take back his police identification. I decided the man would be the perfect person to set up as the culprit, so I took a hackney carriage over there with the body still in my trunk.
That must have been just after we took this photograph with you at the hotel then.
Yes, I wasn't expecting a welcoming committee. I was more than a little nervous. On Fresno Street, I spotted a young girl selling little firecrackers.
Miss Venus, of course.
I conceived of the candle trick there and then. So I donned a simple disguise and approached the girl to buy enough firecrackers to replicate a gunshot. What sort of disguise? For some reason, the inspector had a bright red hairpiece in his own traveling case. So I put that on, although I suspect I drew more attention to myself than I would have otherwise.
The hairpiece we found at the scene. The inspector had it ready for the Red-Headed League investigation.
I only arrived at the room around 4:45. So I quickly placed the body on the floor, moved the notice board, and set up my little candle trick. I arranged it so the firecrackers would go off with a bang around 15 minutes later.
So that Mr. Boone, who was due to arrive at 5, would walk straight into a trap.
Except, at the last moment, I made a careless blunder.
What was that?
I imagine it was the bag of fish and chips.
I didn't notice that it had fallen out of his overcoat pocket when I moved the body to the refrigeration room. I put it back in his pocket the following morning, but... well, it seems the warmth of the heated cabin had accelerated the decay of the fish.
Oh boy.
Anyway, that's... wow, that's everything. all the sordid details of what I did. That's crazy. That's absolute banana wonkers. Man. Oh man. What even? I've heard enough. We've arrived at the truth about the murder of one of the country's most capable and respected police inspectors. The witness will be tried in the coming days. For a crime of such a vile nature, you can expect the most severe penalty. Oh boy. But there's still part of this we're not done with, right?
An exchange of assassins. What a foolhardy idea.
Mr. Jigoku, one last detail. Who was your counterpart in Britain? Who was the mastermind behind the assassin exchange? That's what I want to know. That's who I think I know. Nothing you say now can make matters any worse for you. Just tell us. Enough. I have already told you that I cannot say. Even though, as things stand, you may very well never set foot in your homeland again. Is he gonna say? What are you waiting on? Or can we get this over with now? It's finished. All of it. I don't think so. Come on. I'm finished. Then, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I now pronounce the findings of this court. This man before us has admitted to the willful murder of Tobias Gregson. Oh man. Shishiro Jigoku, it is the opinion of this court that you should be found guilty. And may I remind all those present of the strict confidentiality demanded by this closed court. This just feels so awkward ending it like this, man. I feel like nothing's been wrapped up. Moments ago, Mr. Jigoku signed a written confession, admitting to the murder of Inspector Gregson and the subsequent conveyance of the body. In short, the defendant's innocence has therefore been established beyond doubt. Kazuma's not happy though, right?
Oh, wonderful. Well done, Mr. Naruhodo.
Yes, thank you. And what exactly were Iris and Sholmes preparing for?
Is something wrong?
Too many unanswered questions? I'm just a little troubled by his silence. The true identity of the Reaper of the Bailey and this extraordinary assassin exchange. We do remain in dark about these mysteries. However, insofar as the indictment brought against the defendant in this trial, we have reached a conclusion. I have every intention of pursuing both mysteries. As a prosecutor. As you wish. Now for the formal adjudication. I hereby declare the defendant Beric Van Zieks.
Objection!
What? What? The prosecution calls for the adjudication to be deferred. Counsel? The accused innocence hasn't been fully established at all. And therefore, it would be wrong to deliver a verdict at this time. Of course. That is the prosecution's unwavering position. He's obsessed. What?
But Jigoku has already confessed.
Nevertheless, Beric Van Zieks has committed crimes for which he must be punished. Well, it would appear you have information that the court needs to hear, Prosecutor Shogi. Certainly, the murder of Inspector Gregson was actually carried out by Shishiro Jigoku. But it's clear from the witness's testimony that he was coerced into complying with the plot, into the sick, merciless assassin exchange. That may be true, but don't what I want to know is who coerced Jikoku? Who is pulling the strings? The victim went to France, having been ordered on a mission for the Reaper, only to be murdered. In other words, the mastermind behind the Assassin Exchange is someone in a position to give such an order. As we've already established, the Reaper himself.
We're putting the Reaper on trial?
Well, certainly that would appear to follow. The prosecution hereby formally accuses the man in the dock, Varric Van Zieks, of being the Reaper of the Bailey, and furthermore, I'm going to prove his guilt beyond all reasonable doubt.
What? Just when you thought we were done, guys. Not even close.
Order, order, order! The Reaper of the Bailey is a long-standing mystery, Counsel. Are you suggesting you have some new information with which to build a case?
Scotland Yard has already investigated Lord Van Zieks very thoroughly in that regard, and they found no evidence whatsoever to substantiate the claim that he is the Reaper.
Perhaps, but circumstances have now changed.
What do you mean?
It's already been established that the Assassin Exchange was negotiated with Jikoku by the Reaper himself, which means we now have a new line of questioning by which to identify definitively the man's identity. And that is the prosecution's intention here. I must say, I'm surprised by quite how tenaciously you appear to want to besmirch my name. You are guilty of an unforgivable crime, Lord Van Zieks. And I will bring you to justice for it, whatever it takes.
That explains Kazuma's silence before. He wasn't done. He'll stop at nothing to finish what Lord Van Zieks unwittingly started 10 years ago. Oh boy.
Very well, whilst it's extremely irregular, I will, on this occasion, grant the prosecution further opportunity for witness testimony. The defendant will disclose any and all involvement he has had with Reaper and the Assassin Exchange. I thank you, my lord, for guiding the court so wisely. I hereby declare this court to be in session for a supplementary hearing.
Oh boy. All the imaginary jurors are back. It's not over, guys. You thought it was done. It's not done.
I turn a blind eye to the discourtesy as I verify this vile and unremitting accusation hasn't soured the contents of my hallowed chalice.
Lord Van Zieks!
I first had to suffer the pseudonym of the Reaper 10 years ago now, and ever since that time, I've endured the weight of the implied guilt that's gone with it. So I welcome the chance to testify now and crush those allegations once and for all.
Oh man. He's ready to go.
Good. Then let justice decide, Lord Van Zieks. The prosecution seeks to begin building its case by calling the accused to the stand as the primary witness, in order that he may answer the accusation brought by the prosecution that he is the Reaper of the Bailey. And what says the defense?
Putting the defendant in the witness stand can be extremely dangerous. And Kazuma-sama is so emotional at the moment. He's not thinking logically.
You're right that he's not himself, but I knew it would be like this. And I came here today determined to face him through whatever might arise. As a lawyer and as his friend, we've got to do it.
Then that's what we must do.
The defense has no objection, my lord.
Very well. Defendant, you will take the witness stand and give formal testimony on the subject of your involvement with the Reaper and the Assassin Exchange. Oh boy. As you wish, my lord. Man. Well, of course, we are going to do that next time. So let's go ahead and give it a save now. Because that was very, very long. But it was so good, man. Alright. Let's go ahead and head back to the title. Don't save, we just saved. Alright. Well, so we solved the case. Or did we? So Judge Jugoku has admitted to killing Gregson, but apparently Kazuma is having none of that. So now we have to actually find out who is the Reaper of the Bailey. Is the Reaper responsible for all of this? What exactly are we going to figure out? I am so curious to see what the next little bit of this case is going to reveal in our next episode. So if you like this kind of content, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/LeR27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/LeR27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye. All right, let's go ahead and hop out of here now. That was a lot of fun. I am just like, I knew it was gonna be like that. It's always like that. Mind blown. Like, just when you think it's over, nope, it's not over. There is a whole new chapter involved. So anyways, so that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun with that. Thank you all for hanging out with me. We will be back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central. We're going to be playing a new game that was actually recommended by one of you guys. Let's see, it's a Disco Elysium. It's supposed to be a detective RPG game. I don't know, it looks interesting, so we're going to check it out. And then we're also going to be hopefully maybe finishing Myst 3. We're at least at the very end, even if we haven't quite finished it. So, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. So right now, let's see who we can raid. Let's see, anyone playing anything interesting? Let us give it a peek. Let us see. So we have, okay, so we have a new person. Let's see, let me check this out. I'm curious. We have this person who's playing Greatest Attorney Chronicles. I'm trying to see. We could raid them. Let's go ahead and say hi. It's Skate Deandra. Let's just go see. Let's just go check it out. Looks like I think they're doing case 3. I don't know. Either way, they're talking about the Crystal Tower. So we'll just go say hi. All right. Bye, guys.